May the blessing of the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit descend upon this host and may it become for us the body and the blood of Christ. Okay, you guys can begin coming back. We went a little over there. You can start coming back now, and we'll begin in just a minute. Okay, guys, we can begin. I'm not gonna read from John today. I wanted to do something a little different, and it kind of was inspired by just some of the phone calls that I've received and conversations I've had in the last week or two. And so I kind of hit upon it last week with the division that is going on in our country. And this division, it does seem to be growing, and it's just shot right through the fabric of America, and like a lightning bolt, and it has just shot through right. It's shot right through families and divided them. And I know people who are within the marriage. This political divide has shot right through the center of the marriage and created a separation there that can seem insurmountable to some people. And so we've got this mounting tension going on in the country, and then there's the virus, and so people feel a bit isolated, and the division is growing, and there's anger and frustration, and I made a big thing last week about uncertainty. And I did that because I think that in human beings, we want to grasp on certain knowledge. And one of the dangers in a time like this is that there's so many things going on. There's so many factors at play that people can feel lost and confused. And 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 our culture isn't as cohesive as it once was. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it isn't as cohesive as it once was. And we used to all draw meaning from the same things. And so our lives were set in a context of spiritual growth, and a lot of that has been lost for a lot of people. Obviously not for the people listening to these videos, but so there's just this sense in which things have sort of gotten a little bit rotten and divided, and we've lost some of our structures, and there's uncertainty in the world, and there's a lot of danger in that. And this is what I don't know if I really alluded to this, or if I didn't. I decided I would just speak directly about it. There's a real danger in that for people that are feeling uncertain, and there's so many that we would begin to turn to charlatans who would offer us really clear, easy answers, people to blame, and to project all of that fear and uncertainty onto, and maybe even in a hateful way. And so the danger is that we're in this place where we're divided. The danger is that we would allow that division to grow, that gap to grow. And because we can have ideological differences in this world, we can have pretty radical ideological differences, and that really shouldn't be the end of our relationships, should it? Should we really separate ourselves from one another just because we disagree on some fundamental things? And I think we should not. And so, I went to great lengths to talk about how we need to not have too rigid of opinions, have really strong opinions. We can have a position that we arrive at to the best of our ability, but there should be a certain intellectual humility in us, where we can just allow room for the other, right? We can allow room for someone to be where they are and to believe what they believe, and be in the level of development they're in, and working that out. And we should trust that in the grandest scheme of things, what is happening now is really a step forward towards God and towards love. But just, as we've discussed so many times, but how that often can look for a society, a lot like it looks for an individual when they're taking a step forward, and ugly things come out of the unconscious mind that must be dealt with and processed. And in that can be similar for a society, that we can have lurking disorder underneath the radar in lots of people, in all people really, and that's got to surface. And as it surfaces, we might feel and think some very intense things that are really, it's our disorder talking, it's our fear talking, it's our anger talking, it's our insecurities talking. And we could project that onto the other, and we could turn them into an enemy. And I think I want to say, and I hope this is relevant, this, I'm thinking of the country right now, but I'm also thinking of marriage. And I'm thinking of any long-term sort of relationship or friendship where, disorder can arise, and 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 tensions can flare. But if we could wait some time, all of that can sort of pass. And so I thought I would read this scripture, which I think is really where the solution lies. And the scripture it's 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 8. And what I'm going to do is just read that. You've heard it a million times. I'll read it and then make a little bit of commentary about it, and then maybe just a call to, everybody, who's watching these videos, to root out and make certain that you are not allowing a judgment to fester within you, a negativity to fester within you towards an out group, a group that you don't agree with. And you can have those disagreements. That's fair. It's okay to have disagreements. It's okay to not see things the same way. I think that's all right. But anything less than love towards that group is not enough. So it's not even enough to quietly hate or resent, but keep it to ourselves. That's not enough, because that energy, that sentiment, it festers in a community, and people don't exactly know it's there, but they can't put their finger on it, but they can sense that. And the sin of today, the great sin in our country right now, is division. That is the great sin in our country. We are very divided right now, and there's anger and hatred and frustration towards the other that we're allowing to fester within ourselves, and that is immaturity, and it is sinfulness. And we certainly must not allow that to fester within our own souls. And if we're on the receiving end of that from any particular person or group, we must have the courage and the will and the strength to be willing to forgive that person or that group endlessly. Right? Jesus says, forgive 70 times 7. So there must be some part of us that is willing to forgive and not be blinded by darkened emotions, which pollute our thinking. Jesus talks about ways to know, that there are ways to know. And he seems to very often link it to wanting God's will instead of your own, right? Like if you just want God's will to be done and not your own, then you automatically can see more clearly. And so we want God's will to be done. We don't know what that is. We know it isn't hatred, though. We know for certain that anger and hatred and judgment has no place in our soul towards another human being. We know this, and so we have to ensure that we are not allowing ourselves to slip into that. Now, I want to say, though, that I do know everyone in the community. I don't know everyone who's listening to the videos. I'm not really aware of anyone who's getting caught up in this to any serious degree. A few people, a few people have mentioned having some anger, but they didn't seem to me to be angry. It seemed more like they're experiencing some anger and they know that isn't the path. They know that isn't God's will. And so they're not participating in that anger in a willing way, but just that it has arisen. But it seems to me, everyone that's spoken to me about it has spoken about it in the context of uh, we're going to allow this to be healed and we're going to outgrow it. So I don't really think our community is particularly troubled by this. But then again, it's I've been privy to some information through one of my friends, and contemplative and meditative communities are finding themselves somewhat surprised and shocked at how many members of their community are going down this road of division and anger and judgment, and they've been somewhat, scandalized. At least one group that I'm aware of is somewhat scandalized by this, and was, in the process of doing a sort of we would call it an inventory. How did we get here? How is it that members of our own, who are supposedly praying and meditating regularly and practicing, what we would call rigorous self-examination, how is it that members within those groups are going down a road that leads to, anger and division and extreme judgment? How is that happening? And so I think each one of us should be very careful to watch for this. And it's emotionally charged if someone you love deeply goes down a road that you feel is very wrong, that is maybe fundamentally wrong about the way things really are. That can be a very difficult thing to deal with. The closer you are to someone, and detachment is the answer, but we it's tricky. Detachment is tricky because in a marriage, there's either must be attachment or there is no marriage. With children, there must be no attachment, or there is no raising of the children, and children must be attached to their parents. There's a bond of love there, and there's an attachment that is necessary and good. And so we have to manage these bonds that are really God given and good, with some kind of detachment that allows us to accept that person where they are, and not fall into a polarity with them. So they see it this way, and I see it this way, and now we disagree, and we're opposed to one another. And I think the answer is love. I think the answer is love. And 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 love is, you know love is a tricky thing to talk about. My experience in the world right now is a growing and increasing love for everyone in the country. It would be everyone in the world, but just now, because of what's happening here and the division, I'm more focused on our country just because of what's going on. But what I'm feeling is a real growing love, and acceptance of everybody, and of where everyone is at, and a joy, a joy, I guess I would say, of a joy. It's hard. Love is so powerful. Love, I'm looking at the same facts, right? The same division that we see, that everyone's talking about it. I'm looking at those same facts. And the potential for more disorder, possibly. I mean, there's really a potential there for more disorder in this country, and things could boil over in certain parts of the country, and they have. And I'm looking at all that. Those facts seem grim, I guess, but through the eyes of love and joy, It's the same facts. There's no doubt that there's a reality that has to be dealt with. There's not rose-colored glasses in the sense that you think now magically nothing will happen. But through the eyes of love and joy, one can cast one's gaze out on the entirety of the country and hold it all in one space, right? Hold everyone. Through the eyes of love and joy, we're not looking at this group and that group. We're not looking at it as, left and right and good and bad and right and wrong and, black and white thinking. We're not through the eyes of love, because love goes out to everyone, because love shines on everyone equally, because love is this field of consciousness from God that is shown upon every single individual with equal intensity and brightness. And so you can tap that. You can so easily overcome your own perspective and your own small-minded thinking and your own fears in love. Love allows us to cast our gaze, our consciousness, our noticing out upon everybody and have genuine goodwill and a joyous appreciation of everybody, no matter where they're coming from. And there's a real power in that. What side are you on? What side are you on right now? Right? What side are you on? And as Christians, we must be on the side of love, right? So we're not on any other side. Right? We may have certain beliefs that align to certain perspectives. We can have our perspectives. That's okay. We could think that, a certain set of facts and descriptions describe what is happening in the country best. We can think that and have love. But it's idolatry if that way we're thinking about it is so intense or strong that it causes ill will towards the other. Then that becomes toxic and that becomes sinful. And all of a sudden, we're no longer on the side of love. We're no longer on the side of good. We've fallen into something else. At the very least, it would be judgment, frustration, possibly. And the darker it gets, the worse it gets, where it can get into anger. And anger, is close to violence. Anger is violence. It's a form of violence. And we're all connected, right? So we share a consciousness. And so when someone in Idaho is thinking about the state of the country, they can sense the atmosphere in the country. And, you and I, and so many people I know, so many people, so many spiritual groups, so many religious people, so many people in this country now are choosing to love and instead of divide. And in choosing a larger context with which to view what is happening in the country. And that larger context must come from everyone in this country is a creation of God. Every single person in this country is loved with fierce intensity by God. every single person is seen by God in the light of love and is cherished by God. And we are all one family in this love. We're all one family in this love. We're all connected. We're all brothers and sisters. And it's okay to have disagreements. That's okay. But that can't be where we're coming from with one another. That can't be. We must, especially you and I, especially us, the millions of people who claim a real intent to walk a deep spiritual path. Especially these people, all of us, must come from a higher place than our positions. We must come from a place better than that. And so if you could, I don't know if how to do this, and maybe there is no way, but if you can imagine just the entire country all at once, and imagine detaching from your political perspective on whatever is happening. If you could just pull back from all that and unhook from it completely, you come up out of a sort of turmoil and these sort of magnetic forces that are pulling us towards and repelling us from others. And if you can do that, if you can pull back enough, then you can see the entire country and everybody in it existing and moving and being in a field of love, a field of energy that is goodness, that is joy, that is filled with goodwill. And you can participate in that field of energy of love that comes from God. Your heart can plug into that love. And you can also have love for these people. You can forgive them for whatever wrongs you perceive them to be involved in or have done. You can forgive. It is very close to God's heart to forgive and to overlook that sin and to see beyond it and to see through it to the child of God, the truest thing, the thing that matters most, and plug into humanity from that place. And you can't be on a side. I mean, you can vote and you can have an opinion and, that's fine. But you can't identify with and be on a side and have a universal love for everybody. You can have your positions. You can lean a certain direction. We can have legitimate disagreements. Life is messy. Humanity is always moving forward, but we almost never even have perfect options available for us to move forward through. Right? It's messy, and it's always in an act of becoming. Humanity and our culture and our societies, they're always in an act of becoming, and we never really even have perfect solutions to lean on. It's always imperfect. It's always a little out of bounds because we're moving to something true, but we're in process towards that. And every step along the way is is a mix, right? So we can have our positions. We can have what we think ought to be done in this area or this area. We can have that. But it's idolatry if that is our anchor. It is idolatry if that is our anchor. If we can't look at someone who disagrees with every position we hold on this level and experience joy in their soul, then we have things backwards. Then we have things backwards. Then we have things upside down. Then we have lost our way. We've forgotten what everything is really about. And since we are all connected, we are here, Jesus says you are the leaven in the dough and you are the salt of the earth, and a little bit of leaven leavens the whole dough, right? So there's a lot of illusion going on. There's a lot of people who are lost in untrue. There are a lot of people who are lost in the false. There are a lot of people who have lost their way into these things. We're the leaven in the dough who refuse to enter into battle with the other, who refuse to despise the other, who refuse to hate the other, and even more, who choose to love everyone. Jesus says, love your enemies, love your enemies. Love everybody. And we have a spiritual duty at this point in time to be certain that we are not harboring and feeding the hatred and the anger and the judgment that is infecting our country. We need to be a source of light in our families. And I don't just mean with those who disagree. Obviously, we want to show the people with whom we disagree love. But with those whom we agree, we must not foment division and anger. We must be a source of light and hope for others. This is our job as members of the body of Christ and as disciples of Christ. And there's never been a time in my lifetime, and I have a lot of friends that are older than me, 20 years older, 25 years older, and they all say there's never been a time they're aware of where things were more divided than now. And that means that there's never been a time more important than now for you to put aside all petty things towards your neighbor. And you don't have to hang out, you don't have to be best friends with anybody, but love them and really mean it. And this is the way. This is the healing that the country needs. This is the glue that could hold things together. This is the energy that someone in Idaho who's never heard about us tunes into the state of the country and feels a source of light and hope, because there's millions of people across the country not entering into judgment and not entering into hatred. Okay, I hope that's an okay message for this. I didn't want to read in John, and I'm going to read this now. I'm not in my normal location because my foot might be broken. I again couldn't walk today, so I'm back to not my normal location, and the timing's a little funky. Someone may walk in the house and you might hear some commotion. But let me read this. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4 through 8. You've heard it before, but it's never more prescient than now. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always preserves. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. And I just want to, I'm just going to reread a couple of these. Love is patient. We could give this a few years to blow over. It's okay. It's okay. People can go through what they need to go through. We can love them and forgive them and not judge them. We can let people go through what they need to go through. We can give them the space to do that. We have the patience to wait because we know all of that illusion is not true. And we know that all of that is temporary and that goodness and truth and love and joy and peace are eternal. We can wait. We can wait. It does not dishonor others. Love does not dishonor others. It is not easily angered, and it keeps no record of wrongs. Okay, so one last little piece of information on this topic, and thinking now if it not so much about the division in the country now, but thinking just in general about our relationships with others, either individuals or groups. It is still okay. You know, I had this conversation with somebody talking about their husband. It is okay to distance yourself from someone who is toxic, who maybe whose mind is so darkened they can't stop mistreating you or harming you in some way. It is okay. Love can wisely just distance oneself from that relationship. But if that is the case, that sounds like division. That's we don't want division, but some situations are toxic for you. Some people in your life are unhealthy for you, and you probably won't sever from them, right, forever. But you may need to. It may be appropriate. It may be the loving thing to do, to create a boundary there between yourself and that person and roll back on the intensity of that relationship. That's okay. You can do that. You can do that. I want to say as long as you love them, but that may be out of your range, right? But so maybe as long as you can pray for them, pray for their happiness and their peace and pray for them to have a good life. The point is that our end of it must have goodwill towards the other. But sometimes the other is toxic enough that there is no room for a connection. And if that's the case, that is okay. That's okay. Um, if there's love there, that boundary is removable. If there is love there, there's the hope, of course, for a genuine reconciliation. Now, that may not be possible depending on how sick that person is, but there is always that hope. Love leaves that hope that there would be that potential and that opening for the other. So that we are holding goodwill towards them and even actively praying for them in a way that is utterly detached from our own agenda, that just wants the goodness of God to be thrust upon them and given them in whatever way that they can receive that. Okay. Okay, that's it. That's everything. Thank you all very much. I may even do a few more talks like this over time because I think it right now is so relevant. It's almost surreal that that there could be this kind of division in our country. It it's just it's surreal. It's hard to believe, and it's especially sad when people we know and love who are on a spiritual path fall into some kind of position that is so fixed that they begin to hate and judge. And that can be very difficult, but our job is to hold love anyway. And especially to love those people, to pray for those people. If there is somebody you can't hold that love towards in your life, pray for them. And pray for God to help you love them genuinely. It doesn't mean you have to put yourself in their physical location, but you want to think of them and have a source of love and joy in your heart. That's what you want to have. And let's let our goal be to have. I know the whole world, of course, the whole world, but right now, let's let our goal be to have genuine love towards the whole country and everybody in it. Okay, thanks everyone very much. We'll meet on Zoom after this, and then we will also don't forget to send the donations in. I had to remind everyone last 2 weeks, so don't do that. Just send them in now. Send them in early. Don't wait 3 days. Just send them in as soon as you can. And thank you all very, very much.